So how did this partnership come to be?
Yeah, so actually I was in France at the time studying abroad at a business school called INSEAD, and I had the idea to start Stride Souls of making custom orthotics cheaper, faster, and more accessible. And I actually sent a note out in a Telegram chat within the school, basically general, like, does anybody here want to start a company? And Zach actually just responded to that Telegram message and was interested in getting involved. He didn't even know really what I was doing, but knew that I was starting something in the medical adjacent space, which was where Zach had an experience, and that's basically how we met up.
Do you have your side of the story when you saw this message?
Yeah, so I went to business school after medical school. I wanted to do something related to telehealth and something related to something called patient-driven imaging, where patients do their own medical imaging. And when I saw this text in the group chat from Greg, I was kind of blown away. This was one of my first or second weeks in business school. I didn't know exactly how my interests were going to form into something like a career. And next thing you know, I'm hanging out with Greg and we're discussing how to turn Stride Souls from an idea into reality.
Greg, I know you're a triathlete. Are you an Ironman triathlete?
Yes, I am. I've done 2 half, which is the half Ironman, and then 2 full Ironman. And actually, the story of Stride Souls actually intersects with doing the triathlons, because when I had my previous orthotics, my feet were actually literally bleeding while doing the race. And towards the end of the marathon, I threw the orthotics to the side and was like, F this. I didn't know at the time that I was going to make my own orthotics company, but I knew that what I was having in my shoes were not the solution.
From my limited knowledge of med school, medical school teaches you to work with the patient one-on-one in front of you. What was it like shifting your mindset from thinking one-on-one to thousands?
That's a great question. Well, you're right. Medical school treats patient care a little bit like an assembly line. You get one patient, you fix them, you move on to the next patient. It just so happened that during the COVID pandemic, I volunteered to be part of a telehealth implementation committee to get telehealth more universal throughout our health system. And that was the first time that I got to affect patient care at scale. And it was amazing kind of hearing the stories of different clinicians tell things like my patient said today how much they're loving telehealth. They love that they don't have to take time off of work or put their kids in childcare. And I heard this from so many different people from so many different fields. I just knew I wanted to do something a little bit grander than one-on-one patient care during my whole career.
Was there a moment while you were working with someone one-on-one or outside the office, a light bulb moment when you were like, okay, I'm done with this one-on-one type of thing, and I'm going to disrupt the system and go one-to-many?
Yeah, I mean, it was during this telehealth implementation committee process where a particular clinician came up to me, who I'd been working with, and they started sharing anecdotes about how happy their patients were that they didn't have to leave home to get medical care. And it just makes sense. There's so many different problems or complaints a patient might have where you don't need to do a full physical examination. And I thought, there's got to be a way to apply telehealth and remote patient care to different industries, and one that I thought was lacking, and Greg helped me, fully flesh out, was podiatry.
Can you tell me a bit about your background in podiatry specifically?
Yeah, so I'll be the first to admit I am not a podiatrist, and funny enough, in medical school, you learn very little about podiatry. There's a whole political reason why doctors of medicine and doctors of podiatry have a totally different process and schooling system. So my podiatry information I've really been getting through the job. And I think the most important part is Greg and I don't design the orthotics ourselves. We collaborated with a podiatry clinic in Germany that has 3 generations of podiatrists working there that have treated something like 100,000 patients. And we trust them to do the design of our insoles.
I'll say also, I think this is a unique advantage of us. Many of the podiatrists have been making orthotics the same way. Actually, my grandma was a physical therapist. She made orthotics close to 60, 70 years ago in the exact same way that they currently make them with that foam box or the plaster cast method. Nothing has changed. But me being an entrepreneur and Zach actually being an MD, we come from a different school of thought. Mine being that there's technology and we can introduce it. Zach being someone that is interested in telehealth, something that the traditional podiatry space is not really accustomed to or even feels open to exploring. And that different mentality and mindset is what drove us to create Stride Soles and really challenges us each day to think outside the box, think outside how traditional medicine thinks, and how can we actually make the product as patient forward as possible.
Exactly. And I think it's kind of a shame that if you Google telepodiatry, there aren't really any services that pop up. Stride Soles is the first, and as far as I know, only telepodiatry solution for custom orthotics.
You guys are doing this direct-to-consumer model.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why you're going this route over?
I can answer.
in-store?
Sure.
Yeah, great question. And while direct-to-consumer is kind of our loudest and most upfront model, we actually do work directly with clinicians who use our system to scan their own patients' feet in clinic and make sure their patients are getting the best custom orthotics possible. And we work with a lot of clinicians who are doing those foam impression kits in their office, who maybe outsourced a plaster mold to another orthotics lab. We have the same process where we allow them to try our insoles risk-free. And time again, they see that what we design is helping their patients more than the traditional processes.
It's also a very good validation point for us as business owners to see podiatrists and physical therapists actually prescribing our product. So it's not something that's just online. It's so good that top podiatrists and physical therapists, even some chiropractors, are using our product in clinic. We get emails every day of new clinicians that want to work with us.
Yeah.
And they're not just trying to do the telehealth model. They just like the scanner and understand how easy and simple it is. And they're using that within their own practice. And then using our orthotics, the ones that we have discussed are made in Germany. This truly is top of the line product. And that's the reason that they're working with us.
Why are you guys the first to do this? Why did this not exist before a few years ago?
Yeah, so I think there's three main reasons. One is the receptiveness to telehealth. Two is the technology of our phones. And three is additive and 3D printing. So the first reason is that people 10 years ago were not receptive to telehealth. It was not something that was widely accepted. It wasn't something that was widely clinically proven to be effective. Now, people, especially younger generation, are completely fine and actually prefer doing medical visits, doing anything within the medical route online and virtual. It's completely viable, and it's a decision that we decided to go down out of our own, actually out of my own frustration with going to the podiatrist and understanding that I can get the same thing online. The second being additive printing. So we use additive, which is known as 3D printing, and the technology there has advanced significantly in the last 3-4 years. We're able to produce orthotics at a much faster rate and at a much higher quality than was possible before. Actually, each orthotic that we make is precisely made down to the micromillimeter level. So we're really adjusting these orthotics down to such a precise note that you might not even notice the difference between the human eye from one orthotic to another, but those subtle changes are really what improve your foot. The third reason is the phone technology. Before, you were not able to capture a 3D scan of the foot. It's something that was not simply built into our phones. Now it's ubiquitous in pretty much every single phone version where you have the ability to take a 3D scan of your foot, and that 3D scan is the backbone of our orthotics and makes the whole Stride process possible.
Yeah, I think there's two main things that makes Stride Soles possible that wasn't doable even 3 or 4 years ago. The first is the ubiquity of 3D scanning with a smartphone. The depth camera allows us to get a really accurate picture of the foot down to the millimeter. The second is 3D printing, which allows us to convert that millimeter accurate scan into a printed insole that we can do not only at scale, but also with high quality materials like TPU that are able to resist heat and pressure changes over a really long period of time. I will say that while these technological innovations are great, Perhaps one of our most important special sauces at Stride is that we don't just take a scan, convert it into orthotic. There's actually a middle layer, which is the design by podiatrists that have significant experience with custom insoles, understanding not just how to correct the foot shape, but also how to understand the way people walk and converting that into the design of the orthotic. And I think those three together really differentiate Stride.
When I was first learning about orthotics, I thought it was the podiatrist that was actually making the orthotics. That is not true. So you might be going to like what you think is the best podiatrist in the city, but you really have no idea who that podiatrist is working with to actually make the orthotic. The reality is that there's an underground industry that says that they are making custom orthotics, but that is not the case. They're probably taking your orthotic design, which they have written a prescription for, and sending it overseas to China or sending it to some facility out in who knows where, and you have no guarantee that they're actually making a custom orthotic for your foot. We actually have some new employees who've worked at these companies, and they say that they take orthotics off the shelf. It's not like there's just one pair. So let's say they have 20, 30 pairs at this orthotics facility, and they're just picking that one for you and then giving it to you and saying that it's custom, but it's not. And the reality is you don't know what you're getting because there is a disconnect between the podiatrist and the podorthist or the orthotist that's actually making the orthotic. That's completely different from us, where we have one vertically integrated system. The people making the orthotic in Germany, they're part of our team. We speak with them every day. So you know when you're getting orthotic from Stride, you are understanding the full stack of how this is getting made and who's actually making the orthotic.
There are a lot of websites selling the traditional foam impression kits. Why are you guys switching that up? What's the difference here?
It's a good question. So the foam impression kit is very easy. All you have to do is open it up, step inside of it, and mail it back to the company where they do some sort of retro engineering to design your custom orthotic. As Greg has already said, whether or not it's truly custom, that's a separate debate, but it's very easy. So the challenge of getting a different process that's much more accurate and more effective, like 3D scanning, was not easy to convince people of. And I think that explains why we put thousands and thousands of hours into designing our process to make it as easy as possible. Our 3D scanner is built into the smartphone. It gives you real-time feedback of how to hold your foot. It's able to do error correction. And on top of that, we have AI modeling that even if there is some kind of, if there is too much movement, we can correct for that on the back end. So there's just been a lot of attention and energy into making our process now even easier than the foam box. And on top of that, you don't have to wait for the foam box to be shipped to you and ship it back in the whole process of having your custom insoles made.
Yeah, so we actually were looking at the foam box method when we first started. Of course, it's fairly common, although on its way out in clinic. But of course, there are other people online selling the foam box method. And we noticed two, or at least I noticed two big problems up front. One, as Zach said, is just the time. You have to wait for the foam box to come to you. They have to stick your foot in it, and you have to send it back. That alone is adding an extra week or two. The whole process, I think we tried it out, was about 6 weeks to get the whole thing done versus us, which is 10 days. The second is actually the quality of the foam box when done at home. It's really difficult, I would say borderline impossible, to get a consistent weight pressure on your left foot and your right foot. So let's say that you put too much weight on your left foot and you don't get that good impression, then what? You have to start the whole process over again. For us, that was unacceptable. There couldn't be any room for error, which is why we went for the phone method, because if you mess up, it's just another 5 seconds, you scan your foot again. And of course, on top of that, it's fast, it's easy, and we're able to get the custom orthotics to people in 10 days. Traditionally, there's two methods for making orthotic. There's the plaster cast method, which you put your foot in this plaster, it hardens, they then crack it open, and they use that as the negative to make your orthotic. And the other one is the foam box. Before the custom scanning, which we do, the plaster cast method was the gold standard for orthotics. And actually the foam box was really the secondary one for podiatrists that didn't have a lot of time, that didn't want to waste their own resources to getting this plaster cast done. Now, of course, you can't do the plaster cast method online, which is why our competitors have gone with the foam box method, because it's simpler, it's cheaper, but ultimately it doesn't create as good of an orthotic. It's just too difficult to create even pressure on your left and right foot. If you look at podiatry now, the majority of top clinicians are moving to the digital scanning. So it's not something that's just online only. It is pretty common, if not the most common method right now in the United States for making scans. And it's not just orthotics that people are using 3D scanning for. I actually just watched this film from the NFL Network of how they're using the 3D scanner to make helmets of the NFL players, because every head is different, so they want to make the helmet shape be exactly molded to the person's head. So if you think about the application there, even helmets for children, they're using the same 3D scanning technology, which we're putting in our orthotics. So if it's good enough for the NFL players, it's good enough for your feet.
Currently, you guys do gait analysis and 3D scans using a smartphone. What's next for Stride? What's the next innovation that's going to make this even better and strong?
So there's two innovations that we're working on. The first is real-time AI gait analysis, and the second is pressure sensors that we build into the custom orthotic that gives real-time feedback about how the foot and weight is shifting during activity. Regarding the gait analysis, just having that in our process alone differentiates Stride from every other company that you might buy insoles from. Understanding how patients move is often more important than understanding the foot shape. And you can imagine that a little shift in how your heel is contacting the ground pays dividends way up as it translates to the ankle, to the knee, to the hip, and even the low back. So understanding this is critical in how we design our insoles. Helping patients and customers understand this in real time is really a game changer. So that's one thing we're working on. And then the second is the pressure sensors in the custom orthotic. So right now, we don't get any feedback about how the weight transfer is changing with our orthotics. We know that they are effective. We've done in-clinic measurements, but we don't have any measurements from the real world. We know also that there's an appetite for this. There's a company out there called Carve, which does pressure measurement for skiing in particular, but why limit it to just skiing? We want to do this for running, basketball, tennis, soccer, all the different activities people do, and help them from a pain standpoint, but also a performance standpoint.
What's the impact that you guys have had so far?
Yeah, so these are truly custom orthotic that is changing lives. I personally, as someone with flat feet, have been able to do marathons, Ironman, that I thought were honestly not possible for using the orthotics. People come to us from all walks of life with all issues, and they say that these orthotics are allowing them to live better, spend more time with their grandchildren, run that race that they always wanted to run. It's all possible with Stride, whether it's flat feet, plantar fasciitis, bunions. Really, we make a custom pair for your condition and your shoe type, and the results are remarkable as someone that's experienced it myself.
Yeah, as someone who uses Stride soles, I can only say that they've really changed how I feel and move on a daily basis. I have a Stride insole here, and one thing that I'm particularly proud of is that it's custom from heel to toe. So it may not come through on the camera, but there's a toe bar here, there's a little bit of wedging here on the outside of the fifth metatarsal, and then there's a heel cup, there's a medial raise, there's all different components that we uniquely can add to the insole because of our 3D foot scan and also our 3D additive printing technology. So this really is kind of the culmination of years and years of podiatry expertise, a lot of digital innovation with the smartphone, and also 3D printing.
Yeah, this here is the orthotic. That was actually our first test orthotic 3 years ago. I've still worn the exact same pair. While they smell and don't look as shiny, they're just as effective. And honestly, I cannot go more than 20 minutes without the orthotics. I cannot wear sandals as someone with flat feet. These orthotics are essential for my everyday living and everyday ability to enjoy life as I can.